On February 21st, 1915, in Belmont, Trinidad, a girl child was born to Sybil and Claude Cumberbatch. She was Claudia Vera Cumberbatch.
In 1924, at the age of 9, Claudia's family migrated to Harlem, New York during the peak of the Harlem Renaissance period. During this period, Harlem was the hub of black culture, music, art, and pride. However, it was also a period of extreme economic hardship and vicious racism, but black people survived in spite of. In spite of the economic and even health challenges faced by her and her family, Jones excelled academically and became active in community organizing. At 18, she joined the Young Communist League and quickly rose through the ranks, becoming an influential leader within the Communist Party. As part of the Communist Party's editorial staff, Jones's articles provided a larger voice for the Scottsboro Boys.
In 1931, 9 black teenagers falsely accused of rape did not receive a fair trial, were given the death sentence, but it was subsequently appealed. She wrote updates on their appeal and the systematic racism and classism which was being exposed by their case. Claudia Jones's prominent role in the Communist Party, her activism for women's rights, her highlighting of the racism, classism, and sexism black women faced, her advocacy for the working class, and her politics led to her surveillance and harassment by the FBI. She was arrested and imprisoned a few times under the Smith Act and the McCarran Act. In a 1949 study, she wrote, "The bourgeois is fearful of the militancy of the Negro woman, and for good reason. The capitalists know that once Negro women undertake action, the militancy of the whole Negro people, and thus of the anti-imperialist coalition, is greatly enhanced." She pointed out that black women were triply oppressed, as workers, as blacks, and as women.
In 1951, Jones became instrumental in bringing the Sojourners for Truth and Justice to life, a black women's leftist peace organization.
They were to resist the constraints of tripartite oppression. Responding to criticisms of the new group, Jones questioned, "Since when is it the prerogative of white progressives to determine the direction of the liberal movement of an oppressed people?"
In 1943, Claudia Jones was identified by the FBI as a subversive, considered for custodial detention. By 1947, the FBI labeled Jones a top functionary of the Communist Party and demanded continuous, active, and vigorous investigation. By this time, she had already toured over 40 states in the United States, speaking at mass rallies. After being arrested and released 3 times before, in 1951, Claudia Jones was eventually indicted under the Smith Act for advocating the overthrow of the U.S. government.
She did not. She was advocating peace and linking the feminist black struggle with the working class and political struggle. Claudia Jones's arrest and eventual expulsion were part of the expansion of the U.S. government's Cold War attacks on immigrants affiliated with the Communist Party. In actuality, though, they were afraid of the power of Jones's message, uniting politics, race, class, and gender. After a 9-month trial, Claudia, along with 12 of her compatriots, were convicted. She was the only black woman. Jones's final speech at her sentencing was a pointed reinforcement of the unrelenting, forthright, fearless, principled leader she was. She unapologetically stated there was no official stamp powerful enough to dignify the obscenity of this trial of ideas. Hence, for me to accept the verdict of guilty would only mean that I considered myself less than worthy of the dignity of truth, which I cherish as a communist and as a human being. She continued, "You introduce a title page to show Claudia Jones wrote an article, but you dare not even read a line of it. You dare not, gentlemen of the prosecution, assert that Negro women can think and speak and write."
She was imprisoned for a year and 1 day. On 9th December 1955, Claudia Jones was expelled from the United States of America. Claudia Jones arrived in London on December 22, 1955, and was welcomed by friends and Communist Party members.
In London, she recognized the same systemic race, class, and gender struggle. Claudia immediately began meeting and organizing among the British Caribbean community. She worked and joined with the West Indian Forum and Committee on Racism and International Affairs, the Caribbean Labour Congress, among others.
Claudia Jones provided the much-needed bridge for the London black community to the US black community and their art, their struggles, their leaders and civil rights movement. She collaborated with a network of friends from Norman Manley to Chetty Jagan to Amy Ashworth Garvey to W.E.B. Du Bois to Beryl McBurney to Eslander Robeson to Shirley Graham Du Bois, Pearl Prescott and Paul Robeson.
In 1958, Claudia Jones founded Britain's first commercial black newspaper, the West Indian Gazette, or WIG, an anti-racist newspaper campaigning for social equality. WIG sought to unite West Indians in the diaspora and to foster dialogue with black internationalist freedom movements. A main effort was also to stimulate political and social thinking. The paper also highlighted patterns of anti-black violence, racial harassment, and prejudice. Now, in 1958, black hatred in Britain was at its peak. There were groups and organizations urging to keep Britain white. In August of that year, Notting Hill had seen several nights of riots where racist groups of white youth launched attacks on the black community, who were obviously forced to defend themselves. When the violent riots broke out, Claudia Jones went into chief organizer mode. She worked within her network and through it was instrumental in forming a number of organizations to represent and lobby for the required change in the black community. So in a response to the racial hatred and attempt to intimidate Caribbean people living in London at the time,
Claudia Jones once again organized, and she launched the precursor to what is today known as the Notting Hill Carnival.
Her aim with London's first carnival was to unite black British people and boldly represent Caribbean art, culture and heritage to the forefront of British life. In essence, she wanted to show we were not afraid and we were not leaving. She wanted Caribbean people to take their space in the new London.
Now, between 1961 and 1964, Claudia Jones toured Russia, she toured China and Japan, advancing the cause of socialism, but particularly linking it with racism and the civil rights struggles, the anti-imperialism that was faced, and feminism. She had comrades in Ghana, in South Africa, across the African continent and throughout the Caribbean.
Jones was a very active and vocal Pan-Africanist and anti-imperialist. She dealt with issues such as the West Indies Federation and the independence struggle in the Caribbean and Africa. She organized hunger strikes against South African apartheid in solidarity with Nelson Mandela. She led marches to the US Embassy and the British Embassy in solidarity with the civil rights movements. Due to poor living and working conditions as a youth, Claudia suffered health challenges. This was exacerbated by the deliberate and willful neglect and inadequate care she faced whilst in prison. Even after her arrival in London, her health challenges continued, and she was hospitalized on various occasions, even while in Russia. Claudia Jones died on Christmas Day, 1964. She is buried at Highgate Cemetery, London, to the left of Karl Marx.